There was a moment in football, not that long ago, when the most important player on the pitch wasn't the fastest, wasn't the strongest, wasn't the one who pressed hardest or covered the most ground. It was the one who could see things nobody else could see. The one who received the ball in tight space, turned, and with one pass, destroyed an entire defensive structure. Mesut Ozil threading a no-look ball through 4 defenders. Juan Román Riquelme standing completely still while chaos erupted around him, then releasing the ball at the exact millisecond the space opened. Kaká gliding through the Champions League like he was playing a different sport to everyone else. James Rodríguez scoring that volley at the 2014 World Cup and the entire planet simultaneously losing its mind. These were the number 10s, the playmakers, the artists, and they are almost completely gone from the modern game. Today on Elite's Power, we are going to talk about one of the most important and most heartbreaking shifts in football history. How did modern football kill its most beautiful position? And did it make the right choice? Before we talk about what happened to the number 10, we need to understand what it actually was. Because people use the term loosely. The number 10 shirt has been worn by players of completely different styles. Messi wore it, Neymar wore it, Mbappe wore it at PSG, but the classic number 10, the one we're talking about, was something very specific. The traditional number 10 operated in the space between midfield and attack, the hole, the gap that exists between a team's defensive midfielders and their striker. They weren't a midfielder, and they weren't a forward. They were something in between that required a completely different set of skills. They needed technical perfection under pressure, the ability to control a ball in tight space, and immediately produce a pass that broke defensive lines. They needed vision, not just to see where teammates were now, but where they would be in 3 seconds. They needed intelligence, timing, the confidence to slow the game down when everyone around them was panicking. What they didn't need was pace, or pressing, or covering 12 kilometers per game. Riquelme famously covered less ground per game than almost any other outfield player at his level. He walked enormous portions of matches. His sprint statistics would embarrass a modern midfielder. And yet, when the ball came to him, he was the most important player on the pitch. Every time, without fail. Ozil's pressing statistics at Arsenal were consistently the lowest of any outfield player. Pundits criticized him mercilessly for it. He goes missing, he doesn't work hard enough, he hides. In the 2015-16 season, Ozil registered 19 Premier League assists, falling just one short of the all-time single-season record. 19 assists in a single season. 16 of them came in his first 18 games alone. While people called him lazy, he was putting on a creative masterclass. The traditional number 10 wasn't lazy. They were operating on a completely different frequency to everyone around them. And then the game changed. And that frequency became impossible to broadcast on. Let's go back to the peak, because it's important to remember just how good this was. The 1990s and 2000s were the golden era of the number 10. Zinedine Zidane won the World Cup for France in 1998. A man who moved like water. No sharp edges, no wasted movement, just this flowing intelligence that made the game look effortless. His technique was so refined that watching him control a football at full speed felt almost unfair. Then Ronaldinho, possibly the most joyful footballer ever to exist. He didn't just break defenders, he humiliated them with a smile. The 2004-05 Barca season was perhaps the most entertaining individual campaign any number 10 ever produced. He made Messi, a teenage Messi who was already extraordinary, look at him and think, that's what I want to be. Then Kaká, AC Milan, Champions League 2007. Manchester United didn't just lose that semi-final. Kaká destroyed them, running from deep, explosive, graceful. The 2 goals he scored that night in the first leg at Old Trafford were so good that United fans applauded him off the pitch. Even in a 3-2 defeat that night, Kaká was playing on a completely different planet. Literally applauded the man who just knocked them out of the Champions League. Then Ozil, at Real Madrid under Mourinho, and then Ancelotti. He made the assist look like an art form, not a statistic. An art form. The back heel into Benzema. The disguised through ball into Ronaldo. He didn't make passes. He conducted an orchestra. And James Rodríguez, the 2014 World Cup. That volley against Uruguay, the chest control, the left foot, the net rippling, the whole tournament watching one man announce himself to the planet. These players made you stop, made you rewind, made you show your friends and say, did you see that? And then Pep Guardiola won everything with Barcelona, and the game looked at what he'd built and decided it wanted to be that instead. To understand what killed the number 10, you have to understand what replaced it. Three things happened roughly simultaneously, and together, they made the traditional playmaker almost impossible to fit into a modern team. The first was high pressing. Jurgen Klopp brought gegenpressing to the mainstream at Borussia Dortmund and then Liverpool. The idea was simple. Instead of letting the opposition build out, you press them immediately when they have the ball. Win it high up the pitch. Create chances from turnovers in dangerous areas. For this to work, every single player had to press. Every single one, including the number 10. A player like Riquelme, who covered 8 kilometers per game and never pressed, is a massive problem in a pressing system. He's effectively giving the opposition a free man to play out through whenever the ball goes near him. Klopp's teams at Liverpool covered more ground than almost any team in Premier League history. Their forwards, Firmino, Salah, Mane, were essentially the first line of the press. The most important tactical job Firmino had at Liverpool was not scoring, it was pressing. No traditional number 10 can do that job. Their qualities are incompatible with that requirement. The second was positional play. Guardiola's system at Barcelona, Bayern and City demanded that every player occupied a specific zone of the pitch at specific moments. The idea was to create numerical superiority in key areas through precise positioning, not through individual brilliance. In this system, a player who drifts, who roams freely looking for the ball, who operates on instinct rather than structure, is a tactical problem. They create imbalances. They leave spaces. They disrupt the carefully designed structure. The number 10's entire value was their freedom to roam. Positional play removed that freedom. The third was data analytics. As clubs started using data to evaluate players, the number 10 began to look very bad on paper. Low pressing intensity, low distance covered, low tackle numbers, low interceptions, minimal defensive contribution. The fact that Ozil produced 19 assists in a single Premier League season, that context got lost. What the data highlighted was a player who didn't press, didn't cover ground, and didn't tackle. What the data showed was a player who didn't press, didn't cover ground, didn't defend. And clubs started hiring coaches who trusted the data, and the data said, the number 10 is inefficient. So they started signing different players. And one by one, the last of the traditional playmakers found themselves frozen out. The stories of what happened to these players are genuinely painful if you loved watching them. Mesut Ozil. At Arsenal, he was regularly described as a luxury the team couldn't afford. Too slow, doesn't press, hides in big games. And yet, in the 2019-20 season, when Arsenal needed him most, he was paid $350,000 a week and frozen out completely. Not loaned, not sold, frozen. He trained alone for months. Didn't play a single Premier League game in the entire second half of that season while being the highest paid player at the club. He eventually left for Fenerbahce in 2021. He was 32. His Arsenal career ended not with a farewell match or a standing ovation, but with months of isolation in a training ground while the team played without him. He said, "On the pitch, I always give everything. Anyone who has watched me knows that, but some people never wanted to see that." Juan Román Riquelme retired in 2015, the last truly classical number 10 in world football. No pressing, no tracking back. Pure football intelligence. He couldn't have survived a single season in a Klopp or Guardiola system, not because he wasn't good enough, but because his entire style was built on principles the modern game has discarded. His international career with Argentina ended bitterly, dropped by coaches who wanted players who ran more. He once said in an interview, "People tell me I walk too much. I tell them, I walk so that when I have the ball, I know exactly where everyone is." Kaká retired in 2017 at Orlando City, his body broken by injuries that arguably began when the game started demanding more physically from players like him. In his prime, he was unstoppable, but the game evolved around him, and his style became a harder and harder fit in the physically brutal Premier League and Champions League environment. James Rodríguez. After that 2014 World Cup, where he was the tournament's best player, his career became a series of frustrations. At Real Madrid, Zidane barely used him. At Bayern on loan, flashes of brilliance, but never a consistent starting spot. Everton under Ancelotti, the one coach who always believed in him for one season. Then Qatar, then Sao Paulo. A player who at 22 looked like he would define the next decade of football, slowly fading from the top level before he was 30. Even Cesc Fabregas, who reinvented himself as a deeper playmaker to extend his career, spoke about this clearly. The game doesn't allow you to just be a creator anymore. You have to do everything. Press, defend, create, score. Players like me had to change completely, or we would have been left behind. These weren't failures. These were artists whose medium stopped existing. Now, To be fair, the number 10 didn't disappear completely. It evolved. Some players found ways to survive in the modern game by adapting, by becoming something slightly different. Kevin De Bruyne is the obvious example. Technically, he wears the number 17, but in terms of function, he is the most successful modern version of the number 10. The difference is that he presses, he covers ground, he defends. He has added the physical demands of the modern game onto the creative foundation of a classic playmaker, and the result is arguably the most complete midfielder of his generation. But De Bruyne is exceptional. Most players cannot add those physical layers onto elite playmaking quality. It's extraordinarily rare. Luka Modric found a different solution, dropping deeper into midfield where the pressing demands are slightly lower and his passing range and football intelligence could still be the dominant quality. At 39, he is still playing at Real Madrid, still the best passer at the club, because he found a position in the modern game where his qualities were still valued. Bruno Fernandes has reinvented the role at Manchester United, adding the energy and pressing that modern coaches demand while maintaining genuine creative output. But his style is more aggressive, more physical, more direct than Ozil or Riquelme ever were. He's a bridge between eras. And then there is Pedri, the clearest evidence that the number 10 quality, the vision, the touch, the intelligence, still exists in young players. But even Pedri presses, even Pedri tracks back, even Pedri covers ground that Riquelme never would have been asked to cover. The modern game didn't destroy the qualities of the number 10. It absorbed them, diluted them into players who do more, which means you get less of the pure magic. But it comes wrapped in something the modern system can actually use. And that trade-off is at the heart of everything. That is the story of the number 10. I want to know what you think. Drop it in the comments. Do you miss the classic number 10? Or is the modern game better without them? And who was the last true number 10 you watched and thought, that is genuinely something special? Because I have a strong opinion on that last one, and I'll be reading every comment to see if you agree. If you're new here, subscribe if you want more of this. Like the video if it made you go back and watch some old Ozil or Riquelme clips tonight, because honestly, you should. Some of those clips will remind you of something the modern game forgot. See you in the next one.